This presentation is on Mendelian genetics, Introduction to Genetics. Gregor Mendel was an Austrian monk who discovered a number of very interesting things before his time. Mendelian genetics was based on Gregor Mendel, 1822 to 1884. He was an Austrian monk who is known as the father of genetics. And interestingly, he did all this work before the ideas of chromosomes and DNA were ever discovered. He used pea plants to see how traits are passed on from one generation to another. He grew these pea plants as his duties as a monk in this abbey. His job was to tend the gardens. So for years and years and years, decades, he grew pea plants, saw these traits come and go, wrote down the results of all of his crosses, and began to predict the observed outcomes, and his predictions were held to be true. What made Mendel unique? Well, he was raised on a farm as a boy where he saw a number of genetic things going on. Honeybees turned out generation after generation, along with other farm animals, breeding results. He observed things, and he was very intelligent, and he kept good records. He wrote a lot of things down, which was very unusual for the 1800s. He was very mathematical, mathematician. He saw numbers, number-based patterns, and understood them. And also, he was a monk assigned to an abbey as a gardener. Had he had a different job, like a cook or a Bible copier, he may never had the chance to see the relationships that he eventually discovered, because he wouldn't have been out in the garden tending these pea plants generations after generations. And as a monk in the abbey, he did not have a regular job in town or something, so he had a very unique situation where he had time to grow these things, harvest them, see the patterns, write these things down, review the records for many, many years of growing pea plants. Some definitions of genetics. An allele. It's a very important idea. It's a gene for a specific trait. On two homologous chromosomes, there's a space for, say, eye color or hair color in this case. Each individual has two alleles for each trait, one coming from the mother and one coming from the father. In this case, big R could be an allele for hair color. A dominant allele is an allele that prevents the showing of other traits. It's a gene that is fully expressed regardless of what the other gene is. So if you have big R is red, so big R is going to be red, and big R little r is going to be red because big R dominates over little r. Little r might be something else, white, I don't know. But because there's one big R, one dominant allele, you know it's going to be red. A recessive allele is a trait that is hidden by a dominant. It is a gene that is only expressed when paired with another recessive, actually should be allele. A little r brown is only way to get brown is little r little r. Phenotype. Phenotype to me is kind of like, it starts with a P, so I think of picture. What does it look like? So what are your features? Are you tall or are you short? Are you red or are you white? So do you have red hair? Big R would be red hair. That would be a phenotype. Big R, little r would be red hair. It's the same phenotype. Little r would be brown hair. That's a different phenotype. It's the different way it looks. So phenotype refers to P, starts with a P, and refers to, like, think of like a picture. What does it look like? Genotype is what your actual genes are, what the chromosomes say your features are. So your genotype, what types of genes you have, are dependent on what genes you have on the two chromosomes. So here we have three different genotypes: big R, big R, big R, and little r, which are from the same two genotypes above: red hair, brown hair. So phenotype's what you look like. Genotype is why do you look like that? Are you red hair because you're capital R, or are you a red hair because you're capital R? Doesn't matter, you're still red hair, but it does matter in the genotypes. Heterozygote is having two different alleles for a trait. Heterozygous, different. So big R, little r is a heterozygous individual. It has one of each: big, little, capital R, little r. Homozygous means having two of the same alleles for a trait. Here we have a big R, two bigs is a homozygous dominant, and little r is homozygous recessive. So you only have to say heterozygous. You know, of course, that means big, little. But if you say homozygous, you really should say dominant or recessive afterwards to indicate whether it's big, or little, because they're the same.